Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My guest is Brianna Morello. She is, of course, the host of the Brianna Morello Show over on Rumble, and she's with us today to discuss a bombshell story that she published, got retweeted by Elon Musk about the TSA under Biden and how they, chose to ignore some security measures and enforce other arbitrary ones. Huge story, major breaking news, and of course, this is what Brianna Morello does, and we're constantly impressed by what she's able to come up with. Her website is BriannaMorello.com. She's on X at Brianna Morello, and of course on Rumble and the Brianna Morello Show. Brianna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Harrison. Always a pleasure.
So tell me, what is this story? You have the headline, TSA under Biden focused on speeding up checkpoints for illegal aliens without IDs, not focusing on national security. What's at the heart of this story?
Well, many of you guys are probably well aware during the Biden years, they had no problem allowing illegal aliens to board commercial flights without IDs. So this led me to submit a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request. And the Biden regime just decided to ignore me. They don't think that they answered to the media. And so they just decided to pretend like they never got it. And so as a result of that, I had to sue them. And in court, the TSA actually said in court that they didn't have a list of protocols or a memo or any type of documents pertaining to how they'd handle illegal aliens boarding commercial flights. And so they tried to get the judge to dismiss it on that alone, that they just didn't have these memos or documents at hand. And then it wasn't until there was a firing at the head of TSA, and then President Trump obviously came back into the White House with the new TSA FOIA officer who's in place, the acting officer. Now, all of a sudden, they found the documents. So you're looking at a document that was sent over to my lawyer yesterday. And in those documents, it's TSA specifically outlining how they were going to be processing individuals that don't have any type of IDs to board flights. Now, you and I, Harrison, we need real IDs, but illegal aliens, they don't need much. They could show an image of an arrest warrant. They could physically have the image with them, or they could have a screenshot on their phone. They don't even need to physically have it present. And the most alarming part in all of this, and this is the part that's a real national security threat, the Biden TSA decided that they were going to participate in a program called CBP One. It's a pilot program. Now, many of you at home are familiar with that. That's the app that they were allowing illegals to enter the United States with and make appointments. But they rolled this out in 2021. The pilot program was meant to kind of get these people with no driver's licenses or no IDs at all in through TSA security checkpoints. And as a result of it, TSA was bragging and saying that it shortened security wait times. But when you go through the document, you realize that our federal government was intentionally putting us at risk, a security risk, because they had no way of vetting these individuals. So ultimately what happens is the TSA agents download the app on one of their government devices. And then these individuals kind of walk through and just show them whatever they have from their CBP One app. And then they just let them do security. So we don't know exactly if there was a way to verify that they are who they said they were. But again, in the same app, you didn't have to submit your biometrics, your facial biometrics. So there was no way for TSA agents to authentically know if the person who's coming before them is the person who they say they are. And then if you go to the document, and I have this available right now on my Substack page, briannamorello.substack.com, TSA is very happy that this program has led to the wait times being sped up. They're bragging about it repeatedly. They even refer to these illegal aliens that don't have any types of IDs who are trying to make their way through it as a severe burden on TSA checkpoints when it comes to the wait times. So their priority wasn't national security. It was actually just speeding up the process of bringing these illegal aliens onto commercial flights. And they didn't care. I mean, these people could have been terrorists, and there was no care from TSA at all. Just another reason to abolish TSA altogether.
Right. And of course, you've had experience with the TSA before, talking about Tulsi Gabbard being added to the, Open Skies? What was the program where?
Quiet Skies.
Quiet
Yeah,
Skies.
your audience probably is very familiar with it, though, Harrison, because they added hundreds of conservatives to that list. And I've actually got another lawsuit pending against TSA on that front, too. It's another angle to our lawsuit, asking for questions on the Quiet Skies list, because so many January 6th defendants were added to that list. Literally anyone who was in the Washington, D.C. area around January 6th, the dates, they were added to that Quiet Skies terror watch list, and they stayed on it for years. And so TSA also saying that it's a national security issue, giving me any emails regarding how they decided what kind of Americans they were going to put on that list. They won't hand any of that over. So we're still suing over that as well. But TSA, they're not a friend of mine. They don't really like me too much.
Right.
But this is the problem. No one held these people accountable all these years. I mean, they literally put conservatives on terror watch lists just because they disagreed with them.
Oh, this is the crazy thing about this story. It's got so many aspects to it. It's got the fact that they ignore the FOIA request, right? The government secrecy that we were operating under Biden. You've got the disparity between illegals. You just have to, flash us some card that may or may not be valid, no information on it. But as long as you pretend to have an ID, then we'll let you on. Where Americans, it's the face. Now we have the face scan at the airports. And you got to take your shoes off. You got to get touched up by a TSA agent. So there's that as well. There's the CBP One app and the fact that they're bringing in as many people as possible, that their priority was not safety and verifying and vetting. They just wanted to never have the optics of like being overloaded. So just whatever, was necessary to expedite the process. That's what they did. It sort of goes on. Then, of course, the soft oppression. I don't know if that's the right word for it. I don't know if there is a word for it, but so I think soft oppression is the right word of just, well, we're not stopping you from flying, but you are on this program that means you have to go through a little extra scrutiny and your name's in this database. So we're going to track where you go everywhere. It's not oppression as such, but it's not freedom either. It's like a soft oppression they're applying. And the TSA is a very potent part of that soft oppression, the way they can control your travel on arbitrary things like the fact that you were in D.C. During January 6th. It's all kind of absurd. And I've even heard, I believe there's a whistleblower. I think this was a whistleblower that Savannah Hernandez found a couple years ago, early on in the Biden administration, who was saying that they would be giving children over to people to be their new caretakers. They didn't know who those people were. Those people didn't have IDs, and they would actually use the paper saying, this person is now a guardian. That would be the ID they would use. So they had no way of confirming who this person was, but they would give them a child, and then that child became the ID basically to get on the plane, because they'd say, look, I have this kid, and here's the name on the thing saying the kid's mine, so that must be me. And then they get through. So, I mean, the system is just broken. I think in a word, the TSA is just utterly broken at this point. Is there anything that Trump can do to try to correct what has gone wrong in that agency?
Yeah, well, after releasing this report yesterday, DHS did release a statement saying that this program is no longer active, as well as TSA. So assuring the American people that these policies that were under the Biden administration will no longer be taking place. They did end the CBP One app. I think it was day one of President Trump taking back into the White House. So that's the good news. But, we can't just sit here and pretend like these things didn't happen, because as you see, as quickly as it took for President Trump to get into the White House and to stop these things from happening, the next president, I mean, we hope that it's not a Democrat, but if it is, these policies will get put back into place, and we'll just keep going and going. After reading all these documents and going through it all, I'm shocked that we didn't have a terrorist attack here on U.S. soil for the last 4 years, because they left the border wide open. They flew these people in, didn't care who they were. I mean, literally, I had one of my sources read through the document to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And she was outraged because she went through it and she's like, Brianna, they don't even have to show their actual physical copy of any of these documents that the DHS is handing them. They could show a screenshot. That's it. And they have no way of telling if it's a real image, if it's their image. They have no way of telling. And they were okay with people doing just that. So it's deeply concerning. I don't know how we fix this moving forward, because TSA is just another corrupt 3-letter agency that needs massive, massive reforms. And I don't know how we go about doing that. And it's crazy to me too, Harrison, because like you mentioned, I've covered the TSA topic quite often over these last few years. The Patriot Act requires those who are not U.S. citizens to have their biometrics taken. So when you're entering the U.S., you have to have your biometrics taken if you're not a U.S. citizen. The CBP One app allowed non-U.S. citizens to surpass that. They didn't have to actually get their photos taken. They didn't have to get their biometrics taken. And it displays it in the program in both English and Spanish, so people understood that it was a voluntary thing. It was not something that was mandatory. So I'm wondering now if DHS, when they were coming into our country at all, took their biometrics. I didn't see any of that in the documents that were handed. I only saw that they were acknowledging that they took their copy of their right finger, index finger, when they came in and while they were flying them. So that's the only documents that we know that or the only type of proof of who these people are that they took. We don't see anything else, which is concerning, because you remember hundreds of known terrorists were let into our country thanks to Joe Biden. They admitted that. It was DHS who admitted that they let in hundreds of individuals who had ties to ISIS to our country. And then you just mentioned the children issue. Over 300,000 children, DHS admitted, went missing under the Biden years. They have no idea where these people are. They showed up to homes to check to make sure that these kids were there, and it was an empty lot. It wasn't even a house. So there's children who are being smuggled throughout this country, and for some reason, we still haven't prioritized. I mean, even under the Trump years, I'll give it some criticism here. We know that Trump, I know he just made his way into the White House, but we've known about this for months now. There's really not a major effort to find these kids. There needs to be a special task force that goes out there and recovers these children, because a lot of these children are being sex trafficked, used for slave labor, or their organs are being harvested. And this is a serious, serious issue that needs to be handled.
Yeah, and of course, it just makes it that much more difficult to correct any of this stuff when you have no idea who has kids, where they are, where they've flown. Yeah. I mean, there's just no, and it sort of goes to the heart of everything that DOJ is proving right now, which is that you have this government run on these very strict rules when it comes to things you have to do. If you forget about a $300 present that you got and forget to pay taxes on it, the IRS is going to come knocking on your door, but they just happen to misplace billions of dollars year over year, and nothing is ever done about it. In the same way, everything for you to fly, you have to have everything in order. Everything has to be perfect. When the illegal aliens want to fly, they just sort of hand wave all that away. I mean, it sure shows how arbitrary all this stuff is anyway, but it's almost just insulting to me that they force us to go through all this stuff when at any point they can just go, well, actually, no, this doesn't really matter. When they want to. When it's an illegal, they're capable of doing that. I can't remember the quote exactly, but it fits so well. I saw it in a video that I'll have to find, and maybe we'll tag it onto this interview since we're pre-recording it. But it's a guy saying, the worst thing in the world is when you're doing something efficiently that shouldn't be done at all. And maybe that's where we are at the TSA, where we don't even want the Department of Government and Efficiency to go in, because all that means is you're just going to make more efficient something that just shouldn't exist in the first place and shouldn't happen in the first place. So do we really want to make that more efficient, or maybe we can just wipe the slate clean and start over and try something different for airline security, because it's clearly a mess and ineffective if all the studies are to be believed. Elon Musk, of course, retweeted this story of yours with, this is worth a read. Do you have any knowledge of if he's actually taking this seriously, or if anybody, in his orbit is working on this, or if they have any plans for TSA? Just what do you think is next with Doge and Trump and Elon, since they're clearly aware of this thanks to your reporting?
Yeah, well, I'm very excited about that because he has a huge platform. So he's brought a lot of attention to this story, and we're grateful for just that. TSA is being audited right now through Doge. I believe I reported that last week that they did show up at TSA headquarters to conduct the audit. So that's really, really important. So as of right now, we don't know. The top person who was the administrator for TSA was just tossed out by President Trump, and we're very thankful for that because he was not efficient at all. So we're hopeful that they'll find a great replacement. I would love to see someone like Sonia Labasco take over, because Sonia Labasco is someone who I've had on my show quite often. She is an incredible, incredible person who has been an advocate for whistleblowers over at the U.S. Marshals, but she's the big person who has been my source of information whenever I need to vet something. She understands the security measures. She understands how important a lot of these issues are. When Tulsi Gabbard was added to a terror watch list, she was the first person who I spoke to. So she'd be a great replacement. And so if the Trump administration is looking for someone, Sonia Labasco is someone who they're going to want to work for or look for, because she just has all the experience and she understands where all the problems are and how they need to be fixed. So we're hopeful for that front. But speaking of fixing, it's crazy how it took a government agent, not even a government agency, like a government group of individuals to go and sift through all the garbage when it comes to our government finances and all the waste that's gone on all these years. It's infuriating, Harrison, that they have spent all of our money on programs that weren't anything that was going to benefit the American people. And I know the discussion with Doge is that we just need to defund, but we also need to prosecute. And so when we're talking about DEI and all this money that's been pushed aside for DEI and set aside for all these things, I don't care about the defunding part, because it could just be put back into place in 4 more years from now. Yeah. We need to send people to prison for stealing our money, because they stole our money and sent it to foreign countries and they weren't supposed to. And they're pretending how many of you people really at home right now think that $50 million really went to buying condoms for people in Gaza? Right. None of us thought that was going to go there. That was money that was going to get stolen and they thought no one was going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. People get prosecuted for stealing $200 worth of merchandise from a store. These people are making off with billions of dollars and not being punished for it. It's totally unacceptable. And I completely agree with you. Defunding is not enough. Firing people is not enough. And if the Democrats ever get power again, they're just going to turn on that money hose as quickly as possible. Prosecutions are absolutely necessary in a big enough number that anytime anybody in the future thinks, well, I could just take a little off the top here, they'll think, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life in federal prison, so I'm going to not be corrupt. We need to actually have that level of prosecution for these crimes, and that's exactly what they are, especially in, obviously the Doge stuff, stealing money pales in comparison to losing 300,000 children, which is the real horror of all of this. But I guess the good news is that now that Trump's in office, you're getting your FOIA request fulfilled. This information is coming out. It was never going to be a quick process, but it's good to see that the wheels are turning on this thing, and just incredible reporting. I'm so glad that Elon Musk has caught sight of it, and hopefully that'll bring it up the chain and get some action on it. Brianna Morello again is my guest. Her website BriannaMorello.com, BriannaMorello.substack.com, on X at Brianna Morello, and on Rumble, The Brianna Morello Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations, great work, and I can't wait to see what you come up with next.
Thank you, Harrison. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, it worked for me, and it worked great for you. Take your first thing in the morning, and you be so hard, you can run through a football field. I'm telling you, man, through a brick wall. It just gets you so excited, hype, pumped up, and when your girl come home, you just tear that ass up all night long.
Chase, why do you look so uncomfortable?
I'm not. This is the most joy I felt all day.
Okay, good. Good.